75, Ric Flair's life is a far cry from the glory days of the ring. The man once known for his lavish lifestyle, overflowing charisma, and unmatched success now faces a painful reality marked by bankruptcy, ongoing legal troubles, and bitter fallouts with those he once called friends. So let's dive in and see what really went wrong. In 2008, Ric Flair shocked fans and the wrestling world when he filed for bankruptcy. Despite a career that earned him millions, Flair's extravagant lifestyle, combined with mounting medical bills and some bad financial decisions, left him drowning in debt. Reports suggested that Ric Flair owed creditors more than $2 million at the time of his bankruptcy filing. The lavish lifestyle he embraced during his prime years, including a collection of luxury cars, tailored expensive suits, and an endless schedule of parties and appearances, proved to be completely unsustainable in the long run. Flair himself later admitted that he had not managed his finances wisely and often lived beyond his means. Medical expenses also played a significant role in his financial downfall. Decades of wrestling took a serious toll on his body, resulting in numerous surgeries, hospital stays, and ongoing treatments that rapidly drained his savings. Flair's bankruptcy served as a harsh and sobering reminder that even the most celebrated and successful stars, with all their fame and fortune, are still vulnerable to financial ruin when money isn't managed carefully. Legal issues further complicated Flair's life during this period. Beyond bankruptcy, he found himself entangled in lawsuits involving contractual disputes with wrestling organizations and personal legal battles. Perhaps most notably, Flair's on-again, off-again relationship with his ex-wife, Elizabeth, became public fodder when it spilled over into courtrooms. The two were married and divorced multiple times, and their battles included disagreements over finances, custody, and other personal matters. These legal disputes, combined with Flair's health problems, painted a picture of a man whose life was far from the glamorous image many fans saw on TV. Adding to his struggles, Flair was no stranger to professional feuds, both in and out of the ring. Some of these feuds were legendary parts of wrestling history, while others revealed tensions behind the scenes. His rivalry with Hulk Hogan, for example, was one of the most significant of his career. While the two legends shared mutual respect, their relationship was often strained by professional jealousy and backstage politics. Hogan was the face of wrestling in the 1980s, and Flair was the king of the rival National Wrestling Alliance. Their differing styles and personalities led to tension, though they did come together for several matches that wrestling fans still remember fondly.
Hollywood Hulk Hogan. I think he thought he was going to catch Hogan by surprise there, but it just didn't work.
Another well-known feud was with Shawn Michaels, which combined their talents in some classic bouts, but also had moments of real-life tension. Michaels, known for his flamboyance and athleticism, was often compared to Flair, and the two had a complicated relationship that blended professional rivalry and personal disagreements. Flair also had famous rivalries with Ricky Steamboat and Sting, both legendary wrestlers who pushed him to some of his greatest performances. These feuds weren't just about competition. They often involved emotional storytelling, Flair playing both the villain and, at times, the hero. While these conflicts marked parts of his personal and professional life, Ric Flair's wrestling career remains the true highlight of his story. Flair's career spanned more than 40 years, beginning in 1972. He quickly made a name for himself as a charismatic performer with an unmatched ability to captivate an audience. His wrestling style was a blend of technical skill, psychological storytelling, and larger-than-life theatrics.
Unbelievable. One of the most fit guys I ever worked with. Again, there's not very many guys that could blow up Bret Hart, but maybe Ric Flair could have.
He was known for his figure-4 leg lock, a submission move that became his signature, and his flair for dramatic entrances, wearing extravagant robes and carrying himself with unmatched confidence. Flair's records are staggering. He is officially recognized as a 16-time world heavyweight champion, holding titles across several major wrestling promotions, including the NWA, World Championship Wrestling, and World Wrestling Entertainment. This record tied him with WWE legend John Cena and stood as one of the highest in professional wrestling history. Flair was the centerpiece of the NWA and WCW for years, helping to define the look and feel of wrestling during the 1980s and 1990s. His battles against stars like Dusty Rhodes, Sting, and Vader are some of the most iconic moments in wrestling history. During the late 1980s and 1990s, Flair's career flourished in WCW, where he was both a dominant champion and a skilled manager. He led the famous Four Horsemen stable, one of wrestling's most influential factions. The Four Horsemen, which included greats like Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson, and Tully Blanchard, revolutionized the concept of wrestling groups and played a huge role in WCW storylines. Flair's role as their leader only added to his legendary status. He combined his in-ring ability with a powerful presence on the microphone, cutting promos that were often as memorable as his matches. In 1991, Flair made a high-profile jump to the WWE. Though his time there had ups and downs, it included memorable matches and feuds with stars like Randy Savage, Mr. Perfect, and Bret Hart. One of the most famous moments of Flair's WWE run was his match against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 24, which was billed as a retirement match. Although Flair lost, the match was a passing of the torch, symbolizing his transition from active wrestler to a mentor and elder statesman of the industry. Flair's influence extended beyond just wrestling matches. His charisma and style made him a pop culture icon. The woo chant became a staple at wrestling events, and his catchphrases like, "To be the man, you gotta beat the man," are etched into wrestling lore. His signature robes, often sequined and extravagant, became synonymous with his persona and added to his mystique. Flair was a master at connecting with fans, whether as a beloved hero or despised villain. Despite his success, Flair's career was not without its struggles. The physical demands of wrestling took a heavy toll. Over the years, Flair suffered multiple injuries, including knee and back problems that required surgeries. His health declined significantly in his later years, culminating in a major heart attack in 2017 that nearly ended his life. He spent weeks in the hospital fighting for survival and faced a long road to recovery. This health scare was a wake-up call for Flair and his fans, reminding everyone that even legends are not invincible. After recovering, Flair gradually stepped away from regular wrestling, but remained involved in the industry. He made occasional appearances in WWE, often in a mentor role or as a part of special storylines. Flair also focused on his family, particularly his daughters who pursued wrestling careers themselves. Charlotte Flair, in particular, has become one of WWE's top stars, carrying on her father's legacy in the ring. Despite the hardships, Flair's story is one of resilience. Even after financial troubles, legal battles, health scares, and personal struggles, he remains a respected and beloved figure in wrestling. His influence on the sport is immeasurable. He helped transform professional wrestling into the spectacle it is today. Flair's storytelling ability, charisma, and in-ring skill set a standard that many wrestlers still strive to reach. At 75 years old, Ric Flair's life is a mix of triumph and heartbreak. The legendary wrestler who once held the world in the palm of his hand now faces the realities of aging and the consequences of a hard-lived life. His health is fragile, his finances strained, and his personal relationships complicated. Yet through it all, Flair's spirit shines through, the same fighting spirit that made him a champion time and time again. How Scott Hall went from millions to broke is one of the most shocking stories in WWE history. A man who once had it all suddenly hit rock bottom, struggling just to survive. Let's dive in and see exactly what happened and how he ended up in such a tough spot. Hall's struggles with substance abuse were well documented. His battles with alcohol and drugs not only affected his health, but also his financial situation. The lavish lifestyle that came with his wrestling fame led to significant expenditures, and without proper financial planning, his wealth dwindled. Legal troubles also contributed to his decline. In 1983, Hall was involved in a serious incident in Orlando, Florida, where he wrestled a gun away from a man during an altercation outside a nightclub. The man was shot in the head with his own gun, and Hall was charged with second-degree murder. The charges were later dropped due to lack of evidence, but the incident left a lasting impact on Hall's life and career. Years later, in 1998, he was arrested for groping a 56-year-old woman outside a hotel in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. These legal issues not only damaged his reputation, but also created financial burdens from legal fees and potential lost earnings. Hall's health deteriorated over the years due to his substance abuse. In 2010, at age 51, his excessive use of alcohol and drugs caused him to be hospitalized twice for pneumonia. He had a defibrillator and a pacemaker implanted to treat a severe irregular heartbeat. He suffered from seizures, was diagnosed with epilepsy, and was prescribed 11 different medications daily to treat his heart and brain symptoms. On top of that, he was hospitalized again after overdosing on opioids and benzodiazepines. These health challenges not only affected his quality of life, but also made it difficult to work, further straining his finances. In March 2022, Hall suffered a fall that resulted in a broken hip. He remained immobile on the floor for days before being discovered during a wellness check by his friend, Diamond Dallas Page, who took him to the hospital. After undergoing hip replacement surgery, a blood clot dislodged, leading to 3 heart attacks on March 12, 2022. He was placed on life support at Wellstar Kennestone Hospital in Marietta, Georgia, and was taken off life support on March 14th, after his family had gathered at his bedside. He passed away a few hours later at the age of 63. Despite his financial struggles and personal challenges, Hall's contributions to professional wrestling are undeniable. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame as a singles competitor in 2014 and again as a member of the NWO in 2020. Now let's shift focus to his incredible career and celebrate the greatness he left behind in the wrestling world. He began his professional wrestling journey in 1984. From the very start, Hall showed a natural talent for connecting with audiences. He honed his craft in various regional promotions, including Championship Wrestling from Florida and the American Wrestling Association. During his time in the American Wrestling Association, Hall formed a successful tag team with Curt Hennig, capturing the AWA World Tag Team Championship in 1986. These early accomplishments helped Hall gain confidence, exposure, and experience, setting the stage for his breakthrough on the national level. By the early 1990s, Hall had established himself as a skilled, versatile performer. In 1992, he made a major leap to the World Wrestling Federation and adopted the persona of Razor Ramon. Inspired by the character Tony Montana from the film Scarface, Hall's portrayal of a suave, cocky villain immediately resonated with fans. He had the charisma, the swagger, and the in-ring ability to make the character feel real, and it didn't take long for him to become a standout star. Hall's Razor Ramon was both cool and intimidating, a character that brought a new level of personality to the WWF roster. One of the most defining moments of Hall's career came in 1994 when he engaged in a legendary rivalry with Shawn Michaels. Their latter match at WrestleMania X became one of the most memorable matches in wrestling history. The contest was innovative and daring, showcasing a level of athleticism, creativity, and risk-taking that had rarely been seen on such a grand stage. Fans and critics alike praised the match for its storytelling and excitement. This battle not only elevated Hall's status, but also set a new standard for what professional wrestling could be. The match earned both competitors the Match of the Year award from Pro Wrestling Illustrated and remains a reference point for high-stakes, high-energy wrestling matches even today. Beyond his feud with Michaels, Hall's time in the WWF was filled with numerous accomplishments. He captured the Intercontinental Championship 4 times between 1993 and 1996, each reign showcasing his ability to combine technical skill, charisma, and showmanship. Matches against top competitors such as Bret Hart, Diesel, and the 1-2-3 Kid demonstrated Hall's versatility and commitment to delivering unforgettable performances. His ability to adapt to different opponents and match styles made him one of the most respected and reliable stars on the roster. In 1996, Hall made a career-defining move by leaving WWF and joining World Championship Wrestling. His debut on the May 27th edition of WCW Monday Nitro was electric as he presented himself as an outsider ready to challenge the established order. This moment led to the creation of the New World Order, a faction that would forever change the landscape of professional wrestling. Alongside Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan, Hall helped lead the NWO, a group that became synonymous with rebellion, attitude, and anti-establishment energy. The NWO's storylines and presence revitalized WCW, turning the company into a dominant force during the Monday Night Wars against WWF. The NWO was not just a group, it was a cultural phenomenon. Hall's portrayal of the cool, confident outsider became iconic. Fans loved the unpredictability and charisma of the NWO, and Hall's influence extended beyond just his matches. The faction brought a new attitude and realism to wrestling storylines, blending entertainment with a sense of danger and excitement. Hall's ability to carry his character and influence storylines made him a pivotal figure during this era of wrestling, and the NWO's legacy continues to be felt in modern wrestling promotions. Throughout his career, Hall received numerous accolades that recognized his immense talent and contributions to wrestling. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2014 as a singles competitor and again in 2020 as a member of the NWO. These honors reflected both his individual achievements and his transformative impact as part of one of the most influential factions in wrestling history. Hall's legacy is measured not only in championships, but in the lasting influence he had on wrestling storytelling, character work, and audience engagement. Hall's career extended beyond WWE and WCW. He appeared in other wrestling promotions, including Total Nonstop Action Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling. These international and independent appearances allowed him to connect with fans across the globe and further expand his repertoire. Hall's ability to perform in different environments and against a wide range of opponents highlighted his versatility and reinforced his status as a wrestling icon. In addition to his accomplishments in the ring, Hall played a crucial role as a mentor to younger talent. Many wrestlers who entered the industry benefited from his guidance, insight, and experience. He shared lessons on character development, storytelling, and ring psychology, helping to shape the next generation of professional wrestlers. Through his mentorship, Hall ensured that his influence would continue to resonate long after his own matches ended. Even as Hall faced personal challenges and struggles outside of wrestling, his in-ring contributions remained unparalleled. His dedication, creativity, and presence left an indelible mark on professional wrestling. From his debut in regional promotions to his stardom as Razor Ramon and his revolutionary role in the NWO, Hall consistently demonstrated a commitment to excellence that few could match. He will always be remembered for his charisma, in-ring talent, and ability to elevate everyone around him. He brought style, swagger, and intensity to the squared circle, creating moments that fans will never forget. His career is a testament to the power of character, performance, and storytelling in wrestling, and it serves as a blueprint for what it means to leave a lasting legacy in the industry. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more wrestling stories. Hillbilly Jim was more than a gimmick. He was a larger-than-life character that kids loved, fans cheered for, and the company pushed as a fan favorite. But one day he was just gone. No major retirement speech, no dramatic farewell match, no scandal, no headlines. So what really happened to Hillbilly Jim after WWE? The answer isn't as simple as you might think, and it's a story worth hearing. Hillbilly Jim, real name Jim Morris, wasn't supposed to be a star. He wasn't trained in some famous wrestling dojo or born into a legendary wrestling family. He was just a massive guy from Kentucky who loved wrestling and rock music. At 6 feet 7 inches and over 300 pounds, he stood out even in a locker room full of giants. But he didn't start out as Hillbilly Jim. Early in his wrestling days, he went by Harley Davidson, a biker-type character working in regional promotions. It wasn't until he caught the attention of WWE that his persona would completely change. In the mid-1980s, WWE was in the middle of its huge expansion. Vince McMahon wanted colorful characters that could appeal to kids and families, especially with the rise of Saturday morning wrestling shows. And that's where Hillbilly Jim came in. Instead of presenting him as a scary giant or a violent monster, WWE leaned into his real-life country roots. They dressed him in denim overalls, gave him a straw hat, and made him a lovable, smiling, good old boy from Mudlick, Kentucky. The gimmick clicked instantly. Audiences loved him. He was simple, kind, and fun. Kids wanted to cheer for him, and adults respected his no-nonsense attitude. WWE didn't just throw him into the mid-card either. They gave him a strong debut in 1984, complete with Hulk Hogan taking him under his wing on television. That was huge. Back then, if Hogan endorsed you, you were almost guaranteed to get over. But Hillbilly Jim's rise came with a bump in the road. Literally. In one of his early matches, he legitimately injured his leg. It wasn't part of the storyline. He slipped while exiting the ring and ended up with a broken leg that took him off TV for months. That was a major setback. Still, WWE kept him in fans' minds. They aired vignettes of him rehabbing with Hogan's help. And when he returned, he got a big pop. Fans hadn't forgotten him. Throughout the rest of the 1980s, Hillbilly Jim became a fixture in WWE's family-friendly programming. He teamed with Uncle Elmer and Cousin Luke to form a short-lived hillbilly family stable. They were comedy relief, but they were never treated like jokes in the ring. Jim especially remained a tough competitor who rarely lost clean. He had feuds with Big John Studd, King Kong Bundy, and even wrestled at the very first WrestleMania. He was never in the title picture, but that didn't matter. He was over. Behind the scenes, Hillbilly Jim was known as a company man. He didn't cause drama. He wasn't difficult to work with, and he understood the assignment. He was there to entertain, not to play politics or chase titles. He embraced his role fully and took pride in it. That loyalty earned him a steady job through the entire 1980s boom period. But as the 1990s arrived, the wrestling world began to change. The over-the-top cartoonish characters were being slowly replaced by edgier, more realistic personas. Hillbilly Jim's character, though beloved, started to feel outdated. WWE quietly moved him away from in-ring competition. And just like that, without a big send-off or retirement angle, Hillbilly Jim stopped wrestling full-time around 1990. So what happened next? While most people assumed he faded into obscurity, Hillbilly Jim actually stayed closely connected to WWE, just in different roles. For years, he worked behind the scenes at fan events, autograph signings, and special appearances. He helped with talent relations and was one of the go-to guys whenever WWE needed a friendly face for community outreach. In other words, he became part of the glue that helped hold the WWE machine together off-camera. In the mid-1990s, Jim returned to television, but not as a wrestler. He was brought on as one of the managers in the short-lived WWE Coliseum home video series. He'd host VHS releases, narrate classic matches, and talk about the good old days. Fans from that era remember his familiar smile and southern charm introducing match compilations like it was story time around a campfire. Then in the 2000s, Hillbilly Jim had a surprising resurgence. But this time, it was on the radio. When WWE launched SiriusXM's WWE Radio, later becoming part of SiriusXM's Busted Open radio network, Jim hosted a show called Hillbilly Jim's Moonshine Matinee. It wasn't just about wrestling. He played classic Southern rock, blues, and country, and told stories from his days on the road. The show became a hidden gem for fans who loved wrestling history and music. Even though he wasn't wrestling, Hillbilly Jim stayed loyal to the company and its legacy. He never turned bitter. He didn't bury the product. He didn't write a tell-all book trashing his peers. He stayed respectful, humble, and focused on what he loved, and fans respected that. For years, there were whispers about him going into the WWE Hall of Fame, but year after year, he was passed over, until finally in 2018 it happened. At the 2018 WWE Hall of Fame ceremony, Hillbilly Jim was officially inducted. The honor was long overdue. In his speech, he didn't hold back emotions. He thanked the fans, his family, and the company for believing in him. He told stories about Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, and the wild days of traveling from town to town in cars packed with wrestlers. It wasn't the flashiest speech, but it was real, and it reminded everyone why Hillbilly Jim mattered. But not everyone was happy about his Hall of Fame moment. Some fans felt that Hillbilly Jim's speech ran too long. Critics online joked about how he seemed to talk forever without ever getting to the point. It became a mini controversy for a few weeks. But here's the thing. Hillbilly Jim had waited decades for that moment. If he wanted to talk a little longer than others, who could blame him? After the Hall of Fame induction, Jim returned to the quiet life. He still made rare appearances at conventions, did the occasional interview, and continued to host his radio show. But for the most part, he embraced retirement fully. No scandals, no money problems, no tragic downfall. Just a peaceful, satisfying end to a career that started with a simple gimmick and became a decades-long ride. It's rare in wrestling to find someone who walks away without bitterness. Hillbilly Jim did just that. He took the hand he was dealt, made the most of it, and never once complained about what he didn't get. He knew he wasn't going to be world champion, but he also knew that fans remembered him, and in wrestling, that's the biggest victory of all. So what really happened to Hillbilly Jim after WWE? He lived his life. He found peace. He stayed loyal. He remained a part of the business without ever chasing the spotlight. He understood that wrestling is about more than just wins and losses. It's about making people feel something. And when Hillbilly Jim walked to that ring with his overalls and wide smile, people felt happy. That was his gift, and it lasted far longer than any title reign. If you enjoyed this video and want more stories about wrestlers who quietly made a difference, those who didn't chase headlines but still left a mark, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments. What's your favorite memory of Hillbilly Jim?
Please don't do this.
Nope, don't resist.
Tammy, put
your arm behind your back.
Come on. Please don't do this.
Tammy, stop.
Stop pulling away.
Please don't do this.
Turn around, Tim.
If you're a wrestling fan, then you definitely know Tammylynn Sitch, the WWE diva who once captured everyone's attention with her charisma, but later became infamous for her crimes. And not just small run-ins with the law, but serious charges. She was accused of running from the police, breaking restraining orders, making violent threats, carrying a weapon illegally, and even being involved in a tragic accident that killed a man.
Breaking right now, a former WWE superstar charged in a deadly crash is headed back to jail. A Volusia County judge revoked bond for Tammy Sitch.
Her story went from fame to chaos in the worst way possible. So today, let's dive into her life, her career, and the long list of troubles that made her one of wrestling's most shocking downfalls. Tammylynn Sitch's downfall wasn't something that happened overnight. It was a series of arrests, bad decisions, and shocking incidents that kept piling up year after year until her once bright name in wrestling was completely overshadowed by crime and tragedy. It really started spiraling out of control in 2012. That year alone, Sitch was arrested not once, not twice, but 5 times in the span of just 4 weeks. The charges ranged from disorderly conduct to burglary, and 3 separate counts of violating a protective order. As if that wasn't enough, in January 2013 she was arrested yet again for breaking another protective order. At that point, the courts had had enough. Sitch ended up serving 114 days in a Connecticut jail before being released in May 2013. But instead of turning things around, her troubles only grew worse. On May 30th, 2015, police stopped her in Mahoning Township, Pennsylvania, after she was seen driving erratically into a Walmart parking lot. When tested, her blood alcohol content came back at a shocking 0.253%, more than 3 times the legal limit. Just 2 days later, on June 1st, 2015, she was pulled over again, this time in Lehighton, Pennsylvania. Her car had crossed the yellow line multiple times, and when police approached, they noticed her eyes were glassy and bloodshot, and that she smelled strongly of alcohol. To make things worse, she didn't have her license or proof of insurance, and police found an open can of beer in the car, along with 11 unopened ones. Her blood alcohol level that day, an incredible 0.3%. Less than 3 weeks later, on June 20th, 2015, another incident happened. Sitch drove her car straight into a ditch in Towamensing Township. She blamed the GPS, saying it had instructed her to make a sudden turn, but police weren't convinced. They smelled alcohol on her, saw her bloodshot eyes, and asked her to do a field sobriety test. She refused, saying she was in too much pain from a recent blackout and fall. Still, she was arrested, and this time her blood alcohol content tested at 0.078%. By January 2016, Sitch pleaded guilty to all 3 DUI charges. A judge sentenced her to 90 days in jail, but instead of serving more time, her 97 days in rehab were counted as time served. It looked like she might finally get some help, but in September of that same year she violated her parole and landed back in jail until February 2017. The pattern repeated again and again. In February 2018, Sitch was arrested for multiple charges, including fleeing justice and contempt of court. These stemmed from DUIs in New Jersey just weeks earlier. She was extradited back to Pennsylvania for probation violations and faced up to 5 years in prison, but was paroled later that year in October. Things didn't stay quiet for long. In February 2019, a bench warrant was issued for her in Pennsylvania, after she once again violated parole. Later that same month, she was arrested in New Jersey for DUI and driving-related offenses. She was then extradited back to Pennsylvania, where she sat in prison for over a year before being released in February 2020. But the arrests didn't stop. In July 2020, she was locked up again, this time for eluding police, violating a domestic violence restraining order, and driving while her license was suspended. She stayed in jail until June 2021, when she was released by court order. Only months later, in January 2022, she was arrested once again. This time, the charges were even more frightening: unlawfully possessing a weapon and making terroristic threats. Reports said she threatened to kill an intimate partner with a pair of scissors. Though she was quickly released the next day, the incident showed just how far things had fallen. If convicted, she faced up to 11 years in prison. And then came the darkest moment of them all. On March 25, 2022, in Volusia County, Florida, Sitch was involved in a fatal car crash. Driving at high speed in a Mercedes-Benz, she slammed into the back of a stopped Kia Sorento at a red light. The crash killed a 75-year-old man inside the vehicle. Toxicology reports later revealed her blood alcohol level was 3.5 times the legal limit. At first, she was released on bond, but after just 6 days, a judge declared her a danger to the community and sent her back to jail. In August 2023, Tammylynn Sitch pleaded no contest to the charges. By November, she was sentenced to 17.5 years in prison, followed by 8 years of probation.
Former WWE star is finding out late today that she will spend more than a decade behind bars. Tammy Sitch was sentenced following a crash last year that killed a 75-year-old man from Daytona Beach.
She was also given credit for the 566 days she had already spent behind bars. Her expected release date is set for December 2039. Today, Sitch is serving her time at Lowell Correctional Institution in Florida, a long way from the spotlight where she once stood as one of wrestling's most recognizable divas. Now let's take a step back and look at her time in WWE to remember what her life was really like before everything spiraled into misery. Tammylynn Sitch's wrestling career began in the early 1990s, and she quickly rose to prominence as one of the most recognizable women in the industry. She first entered the spotlight through Smoky Mountain Wrestling, where she worked alongside Chris Candido. At the time, she was still very new to the wrestling business, but her charisma and strong presence in front of the camera made her stand out almost instantly. She wasn't just a valet or manager. She had a natural ability to grab the audience's attention, something that helped her carve out her own place in a male-dominated world. Her big break came when she joined the World Wrestling Federation in 1995. In a short amount of time, Tammy became known as Sunny, and that name alone would go on to define her career. With her confidence, attitude, and unique mix of beauty and charisma, she became one of the most popular figures of her era. At a time when WWE was still figuring out how to present women in the spotlight, she was seen as a groundbreaking figure. Sunny wasn't just standing ringside. She was actively shaping stories, adding personality to matches, and connecting with fans on a massive scale. One of her earliest and most notable achievements in WWE was her work managing the Body Donnas, a tag team that included her real-life partner Chris Candido. Under her guidance, the team went on to win the WWF Tag Team Championship at WrestleMania 12, a moment that solidified her importance on the roster. Her involvement made the team feel more entertaining, and it showed that her role wasn't just about appearances. She added value to the product. Sunny's run in WWE was filled with unforgettable moments. Whether it was her cocky interviews, her presence at ringside, or her memorable photo shoots, she became a key figure in ushering in a new era for women in wrestling. Many fans consider her to be WWE's first diva, a title that would later define an entire generation of female performers. Her fame reached a point where she was featured heavily in merchandising, magazines, and media appearances outside of wrestling. But as quickly as she rose, her WWE career also began to decline. Behind the scenes, issues with reliability and personal struggles started to affect her standing with the company. By the late 1990s, WWE began shifting its focus toward other rising female stars, and Sunny's role slowly faded away. Her final years in the company didn't carry the same impact as her breakout moments, and eventually she parted ways with WWE. After WWE, Tammy made appearances in other wrestling promotions, including ECW and WCW, but nothing ever reached the same level of success she once had on the grand stage of WWF. Her time in wrestling gradually came to an end, leaving fans to remember her as someone who shined brightly but struggled to maintain that light. Her official in-ring career ended without a grand farewell match or a dramatic send-off, which made her exit feel even more tragic considering how impactful she had once been. Unlike many wrestlers who get a celebrated final appearance, Sunny's career faded out quietly, overshadowed by personal troubles and the challenges she faced outside of the ring.
Big John Studd's story ended far too soon. On March 20th, 1995, the wrestling world lost one of its true giants when Studd passed away at only 47 years old. He had been battling Hodgkin's disease, a type of cancer that attacks the lymphatic system. At first, doctors treated it with chemotherapy and radiation, and for a while, it seemed like he might pull through. But the treatments took a heavy toll on his body, and complications set in. The cancer eventually spread to his liver, and even a man as strong and tough as Big John Studd couldn't fight it off forever. His death shocked fans because he had only been away from the wrestling spotlight for a few years. He was still young enough to make appearances or even have one more run if he wanted. For many fans, it felt like a piece of the classic wrestling era had suddenly disappeared. Before his death, Studd's career was full of big moments, but it also had its share of behind-the-scenes issues that kept people talking. His size and presence made him a natural star, but he was never the kind of guy who just went along quietly if he felt something was wrong. One of the biggest sources of tension came during the mid-1980s when Hulk Hogan was the center of the wrestling world. Studd was pushed as a monster heel to make Hogan look unbeatable, but that meant Studd almost always had to lose in the end. Reports from the time say he grew frustrated with how Hogan's spotlight limited everyone else's opportunities. He wanted to be treated like a true main eventer and felt that his pay didn't always match the crowds he helped draw. That frustration led to his first major exit from the WWF in 1986. After years of grueling travel and high-profile matches, Studd walked away because he was unhappy with both the money and the way he was being booked. Leaving Vince McMahon's company during the wrestling boom was a risky move, but Studd wasn't afraid to stand his ground. Another source of tension came from his long feud with Andre the Giant. Their battles, including the famous Body Slam challenge, were legendary on screen, but behind the curtain, Andre was known to be rough on other big men. Wrestlers have shared stories about Andre testing Studd in the ring and making matches extra stiff. It never turned into a full fight, but everyone could feel the uneasy relationship between the two giants. When Studd returned to the WWF in late 1988, fans were excited to see him again, this time as a good guy. He even won the 1989 Royal Rumble, but the comeback didn't last. Creative disagreements and more money issues popped up, and Studd quietly left the company again within months. By the time he passed away in 1995, he had earned respect for standing up for himself, even if it cost him some spotlight. From the very beginning, he stood out in any arena he entered. Born John Minton in Butler, Pennsylvania, on February 19, 1948, he was a natural athlete with the kind of giant frame that wrestling promoters loved. Standing well over 6.5 feet tall and weighing close to 370 pounds, Studd looked like someone carved out of granite. After training with wrestling legend Killer Kowalski, he began his career in the early 1970s. At first, he wrestled under different names, including Chuck O'Connor and the Mighty Minton, as he worked through the various regional territories that made up the wrestling world at the time. Those early years gave him valuable experience, toughening him up and teaching him how to use his incredible size to dominate opponents. Studd's big break came when he began working in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, which later became the WWF. Managed by his trainer Kowalski, he quickly gained a reputation as an unstoppable powerhouse. He spent much of the 1970s traveling between promotions, wrestling in places like Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling and the American Wrestling Association. Everywhere he went, promoters billed him as a true giant of the sport. In these years, he sharpened his skills, learning how to work not just as a big man, but as a performer who could tell a story in the ring. By the early 1980s, when Vince McMahon was beginning to expand the WWF nationally, Big John Studd was the perfect fit for the company's new era of larger-than-life characters. When Studd rejoined the WWF in 1982, he quickly became one of the top villains. With his massive size and cold, intimidating presence, he was a natural rival for the company's heroes. Early on, he was paired with classy Freddie Blassie as his manager, which helped build his arrogant, unstoppable image. One of his first big angles was the famous Body Slam challenge. Studd claimed that no one could lift him off his feet, and he offered $10,000 to anyone who could slam him. Night after night, brave wrestlers tried and failed to pick up the giant, which only made the fans more eager to see someone finally do it. This challenge became one of the most talked-about gimmicks of the era and set the stage for some of Studd's biggest matches. The Body Slam challenge eventually led to one of the greatest rivalries in wrestling history, his feud with Andre the Giant. Andre, billed as the true eighth wonder of the world, was the only man who could match Studd in size. Their clashes felt like monster movie battles come to life. The feud reached its peak at the very first WrestleMania in 1985. In one of the night's featured matches, Andre faced Studd in a $15,000 Body Slam challenge. The stipulation was simple. If Andre could slam Studd, he would win the prize money. In front of a packed Madison Square Garden, Andre finally lifted the massive Studd and slammed him to the mat, sending the crowd into a frenzy. The image of Andre holding up that bag of cash while Studd rolled out of the ring remains one of the most memorable moments in WrestleMania history. After his battles with Andre, Studd continued to be a top attraction in the WWF. He formed an alliance with fellow giant King Kong Bundy, creating one of the most intimidating tag teams of the 1980s. Together, they terrorized the company's top stars and headlined major shows. Studd also found himself in high-profile matches against Hulk Hogan, the face of the company. While Hogan almost always came out on top, their encounters were billed as true tests of strength, and fans packed arenas to see if Hogan could overcome Studd's overwhelming power. These matches helped cement Studd's status as one of the key players of the WWF's golden era. In 1986, after years of battling the best in the company, Studd stepped away from wrestling for a while. But he wasn't done making history. When he returned to the WWF in late 1988, it was as a fan favorite for the first time. Now managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan's rival, Studd shocked audiences by turning against his former allies and standing on the side of the good guys. His comeback was highlighted by a huge win in the 1989 Royal Rumble match. Entering as one of the later participants, Studd used his size and experience to outlast legends like Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, and Ted DiBiase. When he tossed DiBiase over the top rope to win, the crowd erupted, proving that fans were ready to cheer for the former villain. After the Royal Rumble victory, Studd briefly served as a special guest referee for high-profile matches, including one between Andre the Giant and Jake the Snake Roberts. This role fit him perfectly, as it allowed him to stay in the spotlight without the grind of a full wrestling schedule. His time in the ring was winding down, but he remained a respected figure both with fans and within the locker room. Even as younger stars began to take center stage, Studd's presence always brought a sense of excitement and nostalgia. By the early 1990s, health concerns and the wear and tear of years on the road pushed Studd to quietly step away from active competition. Though he no longer wrestled, his legacy was secure. He had been a key part of the WWF's rise to national dominance, facing off against the biggest names of his era and leaving unforgettable moments behind. His feud with Andre the Giant, his battles with Hulk Hogan, and his Royal Rumble triumph remain highlights of the company's history. In 2004, WWE honored his contributions by inducting him into the Hall of Fame, a fitting tribute to a man who helped shape the sport during one of its most important eras. That wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss our next one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.